what's up, people? What's up, people? What's up, people? We are back again with another episode of the Number Show for Stadia. I am here with your other host, Jack Deslippe. Jack, how are you doing today, man?
I am doing fantastic. I feel like October has been an awesome month in the community. But I don't know if anybody caught it, but last night my kiddo, my 5-year-old and I, Arthur, were streaming, and we just had a blast. It was part of John Scar's "Caring from the Clouds" series.
Yes.
So um, running high right now.
Awesome stuff. Yeah. I mean, it is a fantastic get together that he's doing for the month of October. For those that are not familiar with it, it's a streaming extravaganza every Saturday this month of October. We just completed the third week of streaming, and me and Jack got to close out the show. Jack raised a lot of money. I raised some money, and it was just a great experience altogether. So definitely check out "Caring from the Clouds" with our good friend John Scar. All right, with that said, before we get started, let me shout out this chat real quick and explain to you what's going to be happening today as far as the giveaways are concerned. But shout out already to our good friend Casino. Casino with the $20 super
Wow.
chat. Thank you. You are the man. I'm gonna show it as soon as it pops up on my trusty board here. Let's see here. Did it pop up yet? No, not yet. But we're gonna give you notice. I want to shout out this lovely chat, man. We got Casino. He's like, I'm first. We have Predator, 2Bodge313. We got our good friend Project Storm. We got El Boogie in the house. Geek to Sneak. Mark's Alley. Congratulations, Marks. He was one of our first winners of our pntsnetwork.com giveaway. So if you go to pntsnetwork.com and go and leave us a Yappa comment on the bottom of the homepage or wherever you can find the Yappa app, you enter into our drawing. We're giving away games daily. So shout out to Mark's Alley. We got this guy, Jack Deslip, in the chat as well. We got Elknu in the house. Who else we got? We got Cloud Gaming Dad. Oh, man. It's Artist in the house. Good to see you as well. Jay Smith. We got Josh Lafferty. He says, my first time seeing the show. What can I expect? Some serious education with some giveaways. That's what you can expect. Great stuff. Oh, we got the infamous and lead in the house. Good to see you, my good friend. Who else we got up in here? We got Windstar Henry V. Thank you very much, Henry, for joining the stream last night and supporting us in that fantastic effort. We got WJR. Good to see you again, my friend. And then we go Cosino with the $20 super chat. Thank you, my friend. Monkey Boy says, yo, what's up? And Jack, if I could take a few moments to explain the giveaways, and then we can figure out
Go
right
for it.
now how at what frequency we want to do it. Um, what we're doing today, my friends, we're giving away, and thanks again to Jack. So please thank Jack in the chat. We're giving away four free $25 gift cards to those that are subscribed to this channel and viewing. So you have to be actively viewing and you have to be subscribed to this channel. I'm not sure at what frequency Jack wants to do this. If he wants to do this at the end of the show, Jack, how would you like to go forward with this?
Why don't we do them at the end of the show? But you could, I guess, open the raffle any time so that people can
Awesome.
start entering.
Yep. Yep. We'll definitely do that. So at the end of, you heard it from the man himself. At the end of this show, we're going to open up the raffle for all four gift cards. Now, when is the end going to come? We don't know. We had some situations last show where people weren't available. So you definitely want to be there, because if you're not there, then we just got to move on to the next winner. So we're going to open up at the end of the show, and then we're going to have our other great amenities like Journalists of the Year Award and stuff like that. So with no further ado, I'm turning it over to Jack. Jack, what great numbers do we have this month?
Okay. So I was sort of working on this a little bit last night, but we're going to kind of split this into two. We're going to start off with just kind of like a monthly update on some of the community numbers, and then we're going to go into our main topic. And if you've been following us on Twitter, you know that our main topic is kind of talking about what caused the community growth last November and December. and we'll kind of analyze that and see what the numbers can tell us. Um, then we'll kind of wrap things up with our poor journal, our famous poor journalism of the month award,
The
and
fan favorite.
okay, community member of the month award. So let's go ahead and get things started. So
Right.
one thing I wanna mention is that one thing that the numbers definitely show is that in terms of like active community, um, like people getting on social media, people um, uh, kind of getting personally involved. I think Stadia still kind of dominates in terms of these cloud gaming platforms. And so one example of this is uh, is Reddit. You can definitely see that November December timeframe here that we're going to talk about later. But even since then, we're still seeing pretty healthy growth around like the um, 40 people a day or so are joining joining Reddit. Um, and you can compare that with some of these other communities on Reddit that are just also growing. I think it's impressive that everybody in the cloud gaming space is growing, but Stadia is still kind of impressively on top there. One other thing I wanted to mention is that games definitely keep dropping. So a couple interesting stats for the month. We're now at 218 games, I believe, total on the platform.
Oh, wow.
Well past the 100 mark on Stadia Pro that we kind of talked about last month. And I think that if we count the AAA games, which are important to a number of people, seeing it at about the 65 mark, I think 65 or 64 here, and we had a couple new drops this month, like Mafia 3, FIFA, of course, Far Cry 6, of course, and then also this green curve here at the bottom is the number of games that are available to a current new Pro subscriber. So the black line is like if you subscribe to Pro from the very beginning, this would be your collection. If you're just subscribing to Pro today, you're now back at well over 30 games that you can claim kind of on day one, which is similar to kind of how the 2020 year ended, which I think is really great to see. Um, one other metric that I like to kind of shout out is these achievement leaderboards, and they all have manual registration. So you have to go to these sites and like manually register and link your Stadia account, and so they tend to be a little um, um, a little bit you know smaller than, of course, the entire community. They kind of represent a small fraction of that community.
Yeah.
Um, but it's impressive that say like close to 1,400 people have gone to stadiahunters.com and
Wow.
manually linked their accounts. Um, and so I really think that these are great ways to participate in the community. One of the cool things about the Exophase site is that you can not only link your Stadia account, but you can link like your PlayStation, your Xbox account, and like your Steam account, and you can track all of your achievements in one place. You can see that that's getting very close to having a thousand Stadians on it, which will be a nice little milestone for this metric. Um, one Twitter account that I want to highlight and kind of track in particular is the Stadia source. They're kind of just dominating it on Twitter, and you can see that they have pretty steady growth here, passing the 3,000 user mark in the last month or so, and just kind of cruising on by. This is a great, like, if you follow one Twitter account, this is probably the one you should follow because you can get all the Stadia news and happenings in one place. Um, one of the other things I like to do is track some of the game leaderboard sizes. The Crew 2 is a pretty cool one to 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 track. And just recently, I played enough of the game that I'm actually able to see the full leaderboard. It's kind of weird that until you beat enough of the street race level, you see an advertisement on a billboard instead of the leaderboard. But I did play enough, and I'm able to now see the leaderboard, and you can see it's cruised past 60K, um, and continues to grow at close to like 100 stadiums a day. Um, which is pretty impressive. And I think you can sort of see the effect that Ubisoft Plus has likely had on the game, when Ubisoft Plus landed in kind of this time period here. Um, so even more interesting data here, if we compare the kind of growth of the leaderboard within the seasons, part of the FIFA games, you can see the growth of FIFA 21 and FIFA 22. I think these are kind of both sort of interesting because I think neither one of them has had a free weekend. Like Madden had a free weekend, but I don't think FIFA did. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, and it's interesting that the FIFA 22 seasons leaderboard has already passed the 6K number. Looks like it's on a pretty good trajectory here. Um, a couple caveats. What I do to try to get these leaderboards is create an account that has like the lowest possible score and just like read off its rank. So for the seasons leaderboard, that's a player with basically zero wins or 0 points. For FIFA 22, I was able to get one player to get onto the leaderboard without even completing a game. So they're close, but not exactly an apples to apples comparison. But either way, it looks like a really nice trajectory here for FIFA 22. And then I just kind of I picked out another one that I thought was sort of interesting, and that's Monopoly. Um, Mono- Monopoly is, I think, another game that's never gone free to play, but it is, of course, well, I guess I believe at least part of Ubisoft Plus. You can see that even before Ubisoft Plus was released, it had passed like the 10,000 range. It was maybe at like the 12,000 or so. And then it kind of did jump when Ubisoft Plus came out, and then it's just been sort of steadily increasing since then. Um, this one takes actually quite a bit of time to count, so that's why I only do it about once every couple months. But it did just kind of cruise past that 25,000 mark, which I thought was sort of interesting. And it's impressive that a game like Monopoly even has 25,000 players on Stadia who have played online. Um, right, and then so one other, I think, kind of impressive number for the month to highlight is just the growth of Sunny Cloud Gaming. Huge congrats to Sunny for
Yes.
being kind of the first, what I call, grassroots kind of community member to pass the 20,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. You can see he also had a big November, December, but has just been kind of steadily growing, even since that time period. And this is obviously huge for Sunny, but I also think it's kind of big for the community as well. There's kind of one of our own who's kind of past that metric. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the first half. These were the kind of monthly monthly updates. So some big milestones in the month. And I just wanted to say that I think like the energy in the community in October has been really, really awesome. A lot of people happy with like the surprise drops with the Stadia Pro. A lot of
Yeah.
people really enjoying Far Cry 6. I think, and a lot of positive energy around that, like Caring from the Clouds program. I think it's really been fun to watch this month. Okay, so with that, I think we can go on to like our main topic, which is what caused Stadia to grow in November, December 2020. So there was actually quite a few things that that happened around that time frame. Um, and I was trying to figure out like can we resolve like what they were. Um, and I will kind of attempt to do that here and see what it tells us sort of about the future um, on Stadia for this upcoming year as well. Um, okay, so as a kind of I showed earlier, November and December of I don't know why it says 2022. Maybe maybe I took out my crystal ball. This should be I
Exactly.
can this should be 2020. Let me go back. Of 2020 was huge for the community. This is what happens when I put these slides together at like midnight or something, I guess. The the community growth just kind of took off. You can see there's almost like this like vertex or something, and then in the plot here, and then another kind of impressive change that happened about a month later. So I kind of just want to analyze that and talk about what the cause was. And let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, so if you look at that period, one of the things that we can do is instead of looking at just the total number, like the cumulative plot, we can look at the derivative or like the change per day. And you can um, you can see that there were a number of peaks, but something big really happened in November, around like the 10th of November. Something big kind of happened like 2/3 of the way into November, and
Hmm.
then a really big spike here in the December period. So I thought we could kind of analyze that and see like what these contributions were and in which had the biggest impact. Um, just to kind of put this into perspective, in the September, October, November range, we had about an average of 50 new members per day, with the peak in December reaching almost 1,000 new members per day. And so this is kind of one metric that we're looking at here, just the subreddit metric. Um, but uh, very, very cool, very cool
Absolutely.
growth to see at the end of the year. Um, And I'll just show that other metrics show this as well. Like if you look at the Discord growth per day, for example, you see roughly being roughly being flat, and then that something happened on November 10th that caused like a step function. And then again, you see that peak in the December timeframe. A little bit messier data for the Google Play, like the reviews on the Google Play for the Stadia app. But again, November 10th, you see kind of like a little step function, another peak later in November, and then like a big December spike with like kind of a general tail here. Um, and then, even other metrics like the Sniper Elite 4 leaderboard growth kind of show the same trend. Something happening around November 10th. So this one is interesting because the game actually dropped, and it dropped on Pro on September 1st. So there's a peak here at November 1st just because it was released, and it looked like it was going to just kind of drop and maybe eventually have a shape that looks more like this or something. But instead, it peaked again and then peaked again in that December timeframe. And so a lot of these metrics kind of show the same trends, which I think we can kind of begin to analyze. What can explain this growth? And so I just kind of looked at what was the news that was happening around that time, or like what kind of events or changes were happening in the platform. So on October 20th, I think maybe through 22nd or 23rd, we had that like good stuff event. And that's probably too early. Like we didn't see, nothing was, you saw the numbers that not a whole lot was happening in October. On the other hand, if you look at what was happening around that 11/10 date, two things were kind of happening. So the family share was like announced and I think mostly rolled out at that point. And then Assassin's Creed Valhalla was released. If you look around the 11/20 or like the 11/19 date, that was the anniversary of Stadia. And so they had announced a few big things at that time. So one is that was the announcement of the Cyberpunk deal on Stadia, as well as Destiny 2 went free to play that day. And then iOS support was announced, but iOS support was actually not really added until later in December, 12/16. So it's a little bit later. Then of course there were 8 new countries that were added on December the 8th, and then December the 10th, Cyberpunk releases. And then I'm going to credit the day December 11th as being the date that really positive articles about Cyberpunk on Stadia began. We began seeing this narrative of, it's terrible on
Yeah.
PS4,
Hmm.
and you should get it on Stadia. And then so that was kind of like a day or so later that really began. So I'm gonna focus on these, just kind of using a little bit of intuition. I'm gonna focus on these events. I'm gonna say that Assassin's Creed Valhalla was probably not what was driving driving growth on 11/10. It was a big game that released on the platform, but it wasn't like Cyberpunk where people were, particularly impressed with how it was doing on Stadia in comparison to other platforms. So maybe a little bit of growth from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but I'm going to kind of give credit for the 11/10 event to this family share being announced. Then I think it's pretty much impossible to really separate these two. These are two big announcements that happened on November 19th. They're big events that happened on 19th. So the Cyberpunk deal being announced, and then the Destiny 2 going free to play. 8 new countries is obviously a big deal. And then all these positive articles about Cyberpunk on Stadia, I think we're beginning to drive attention on December 11th. So let's see if we can kind of take the data and model it with events on these 4 dates and see what it tells us. And so this is gonna be just a little bit nerdy here for a second. So how can we try to model this data? And so I made some assumptions. I admit that some are sort of sketchier than others. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume these are kind of discrete events that happened at a precise time. And in a world where people are asleep for like half the day, that's definitely not, or like a third of the world is asleep at any given time. I think that's not really true. But just for simplicity, that's what I'll assume. And that what I'm going to do is going to model community growth or uptake using a reaction time kind of probability distribution. And so what I did is kind of like search the literature a little bit, search Google a little bit for how to properly model like a community's reaction time to to an event. And one of the recommendations is for distributions like this to use what's called an exponentially modified Gaussian distribution, which is, if you care, has this functional form. So X here would be like the likelihood of somebody taking action on the event after X days. And then there are these essentially three fitting parameters. And so what I wanted to assume is that whatever complicated sociology drives this community growth, I wanted to assume that these three fitting parameters, lambda, mu, and sigma, are constant across the four different events, and really only the magnitude changes. And the reason why I wanted to do that is just from like a statistical point of view. I didn't want to try to overfit the data. If we had the separate parameters for every single event, you could essentially fit almost any function in the world. But if this truly does kind of describe the data and describe some kind of underlying sociology, then these parameters should be roughly constant. And so that's what I wanted to assume. And so in order to fit the parameter, we basically only have these three fitting parameters, plus essentially just like the peak heights for each event. And so this is what I came up with for the best curve, or for the best fit. And you can see that it actually describes the data pretty well. So this functional form has kind of the flexibility needed to describe like a kind of fairly sharp increase in interest, and then like a long tail of overall uptake. And I think it is sort of impressive that you can fit it this well with just those three fitting parameters that are fixed for each of the four events. This peak here, by the way, is actually a combination of two peaks, as you'll see in a minute. So it looks like there's sort of three events, but there are actually four, because there are two events that were close together in time. So before I go on to the next slide, let me talk about what this means. So we can essentially then break down this fit into the four different events and show what each of their amplitudes was in order to determine what caused the major uptake. I do that, so you can see the overall red curve here, and then you can see the four individual event curves. So if nothing else had happened other than an 11:10 event, you'd expect to see this orange curve. Then there was this other event that happened around the 11:19, and that's the green curve. You can see another event that happened around December 8th, that's the purple curve. And then the 12:11 event is this other orange curve. And so if you remember right, the 11:10 event, that's family share rolling out. So that seems to have had a pretty significant impact. Like the amplitude of that is 235. So remember that the y-axis here is number of new members per day, whereas it looks like the second peak is higher than the first, but that's because it's sort of additive. So this green curve, which was like the combination of Destiny 2 going free to play and the Cyberpunk deal being announced, has an amplitude of 150, so it's actually lower than the first one, but but still very, very significant. And then the 12:8 event is the new countries. And so what I'm thinking the data is showing is that this was overall the most important event in driving growth to the platform, with again the Cyberpunk good press being definitely noticeable. So one of the questions is, can that 12:8 versus 12:11 really be resolved? So can we actually tell the difference between those two peaks? And I will attempt to kind of show you this live. So here's how I was fitting this. And you can see that the way that we're fitting it is we're going kind of one event at a time and fitting the first oops, I guess I need to redo the data here. Fitting the first curve. First, so this is, here's where I'm going to set the parameters real quick. And then I'm going to fit that first event curve to the plot. I'm going to add in the second event here and plot that and compare it to the data. So at this point, you can see, how these first two events would have looked by themselves without the December event. I'm going to throw in now the third event, which is just the release to new countries, and then put in the last event. And so you can see the fit here is pretty good. But what happens if I assume the opposite? If I assume that that the cyberpunk news was bigger than the new countries news, and so I will attempt for a second to just change this to 150. So now the first peak is going to be lower and the second peak is going to be higher. And I'll change this one to like the 410. And you can see if you do that, let me expand this so it's more obvious, you kind of miss the growth here that was happening before the cyberpunk release. So this uptake, or the increase in this big peak here, really started before the positive news about cyberpunk was released. And so that's what really leads me to conclude that it was really the predominant contribution to this big peak was the new countries rather than just the cyberpunk news. Okay, so and one of the things I want to answer is like, does this make sense? So when 8 new countries were added, population that had access to Stadia went up by, just using my Googling of the population of each of these countries, it went up by 111 million. Like Poland, for example, was one of the big contributions to that. So the total amount of people that had access to Stadia went from 750 million to like 861 million. So about a 15% increase. And so if you compare this growth, or if you compare this to the growth from December 8th to say like mid-January, when you might expect things to kind of saturate, we see that Reddit grew by about 17%. The Google Play review count grew by about 22%. So it seems to be like on about the same order of magnitude. So I'm just going to say it seems to be a match there as well. And then, do we have any other?
I'm sorry. Just to stop you real quick. I want to give a shout out to Avery Bobo for his $15 super chat. Thank you so much. And the chat is loving it. So I digress and I let Jack continue.
Show you how I look at this data. So if you look at this metric, which is the number of reviews on the Google Play app over time, you can go down here, you can select Stadia. You can see that in the November-December timeframe, there was something happening. If we, instead of looking at the cumulative growth, we look at what I call like the derivative by day, or like the amount of growth per day. We can do the same thing, and we can like zero in on this region here. And so this was the plot I kind of showed earlier. So like I said, there was like a bump here on November 10th, and then another bump here. One of the interesting things here is that the growth, or like the growth per day peaked on December 8th. So that was like really 2 days before Cyberpunk was released, and even 3 days before like the good news really started hitting. So this again really what matches well with the release to new countries. being one of the drivers, um, being the main driver, I should say. If we look at the same thing with the cyber or the sort of Sniper Elite 4 leaderboard, let's see what we see here. You can see obviously, with the date released, it was big. There's a peak here. I guess the peak happens on 11/14. Looks like it started getting big on the 11th. Another peak around the anniversary. And then this peak here, again, you see is December 9th. So probably too early for the Cyberpunk good press to explain, but right in line again um, with the release to new countries. Um, and then certainly Cyberpunk is having a contribution to this overall tale. So what are my conclusions here? So if we go back to, let me go back to this slide here. If you go back to this slide, you see that of these 4 events, they were all significant, like all hugely important to the growth of the platform. Surprisingly, one of the things I appear to conclude is that family share really made a big difference. Like I think that appears to have brought in a bunch of new people. Maybe people were sharing Stadia with family members and other folks who then got a chance at Stadia and started to join the community. Then Cyberpunk was definitely important. Cyberpunk was involved in both the 11/19 event and the 12/11 event. If you add those two up, that would be a total of like a amplitude of 300 here. And then the biggest contribution does appear to be the new countries. And so, I think this is sort of maybe unexpected to community members because if you remember, I put out a poll on Twitter that I think had about almost 200 people vote, and they voted that Cyberpunk was the biggest cause of growth, and then the new countries was voted as the second most popular option. But it's kind of interesting to look at the data, and it looks like maybe that the new countries was the most important, and then Cyberpunk was maybe the second, with family share also being a really big cause of growth. And then what does this mean about like the upcoming year? I think it means that like if you're a community member, expect kind of an influx of users as Stadia rolls out to more and more countries, which it's hard to know exactly when that will happen. There is this like global supply shortage and a lot of other considerations that go into this, but whenever that does happen, expect an influx. And my advice is be really welcoming of these folks from new territories, and if you're a content creator, that's an opportunity for you to also grow and help support the overall platform. It's interesting when you compare Stadia to Geforce Now, is that I think Geforce Now is now available to about 2 billion
Mm-hmm.
people
Yep.
worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Stadia is still available to about 800 million, so it's more than a factor of 2 different there.
Exactly.
But that'll, as Stadia does roll out, it will be a big boon for the platform and the community. Is my own prediction from this data.
Right. Great stuff, man. The chat is loving it. And then we were all like amazed. They said, yes, math class again. That's the great stuff. Yep. I would, you know what, Jack? If I was a betting man, I would have put my money on Cyberpunk 2 because it got so much publicity. But what you just showed is publicity isn't always at the root of reality. You know what I mean? So great stuff.
Yeah. So I will say that, to be fair, Cyberpunk definitely did have a big impact. And, those two data points, like what I'm calling the December 8th date, like event and the December 11th date event, are fairly close together, that it does like kind of lower my overall confidence. But the numbers do seem to show that there was something happening before, that the big growth was happening even before the positive Cyberpunk news dropped. Okay, so do you want to now start the raffle?
Yeah, so this is what we're going to do. Great idea, Jack. This is what we're going to do. And I'm going to show you guys how to do this in the chat. In between don't do it just yet, but in between the quotation marks that I'm going to show you here as an example, you're going to want to type the word raffle exclamation point when I give you the go. Okay. And that is going to register you for our giveaway, the $25 gift certificate. We're giving out 4 of those. But not only do you have to do that to enter, but to even be eligible, you have to be subscribed to this channel. If you're not subscribed, you won't get a reply back that says, oh, your raffle has been counted. So just so everybody's aware, you have to be subscribed. And then when I give you the go, you got to hit raffle exclamation point. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to work my magic behind the scenes. Let's activate all these giveaways. Let's start the first one. Okay. And now let's go start the second one. Uh-oh, hold on. Let me do it like this. Giveaways. You know what? Now that I think of, hold on, okay. I can pick 4 different winners just from this one giveaway. I don't know what I'm thinking, Jack. So now go ahead, everybody. Now go ahead and hit raffle exclamation point. There we go. Stadia German is doing it. All right, I see your ticket, my friend. So go ahead, everybody, and now we will continue on to the poor journalism of the month. Go ahead, Jack. It's all yours.
Sorry, sorry, I meant to get. Is it raffle exclamation point or exclamation point raffle?
It's raffle exclamation point. I believe. Hold on. Uh-oh. You know what? Now I've confused myself. Let me take a look because I see people putting something in the chat.
I think it might be the opposite.
Oh, is it the opposite? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Don't listen to me. It's exclamation point raffle. Here, I'm going to put it in the chat again. I'm sorry. Exclamation point raffle. Oh, oops. That's not it. Exclamation point raffle.
No spaces as well. I see some people.
Yeah, no spaces. All one word. My apologies, everybody. Do it again. Exclamation point raffle. No spaces. No. Okay, now everybody's registering. My deepest apologies. Thank you, Jack. I'm glad you were paying attention to that. But we got time because we're gonna be pulling winners from at the end of the show. Okay. All right.
Okay. Sounds good. So, you know, poor journalism of the month. So the reason why we kind of do this is I just, I've always felt like, maybe many products, like many sort of bleeding edge tech products, are like sort of hounded by like poor takes and like misinformation and the spread of what I like to call FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yep.
And this has kind of been a problem that's plagued Stadia, and so we kind of like to point out, take a moment to kind of point these things out, and then we'll move on to community member of the month, so we can end on a more positive note. And so this poor journalism of the month is always very, very competitive, which is kind of an unfortunate situation. But this month it's gonna go again to an article from Kotaku, and I kind of just had to give it to this one, that the title is Ubisoft postpones closed beta for Ghost Recon Frontline, the game that nobody asked for. Um, and no, an article like this is just like dumbfounding. Um, but thank you, Kotaku, for really belittling a probably like a multi-year effort from this Ubisoft dev team, and it's something that I would have certainly I would certainly welcome. I don't know why it says tie game. I think it should have said the game.
Mm-hmm.
No, I as I think at Stadia, and I certainly would have welcomed this game, and then I don't know what that title even means. The game nobody asked for. Like,
Yeah.
I've never asked for a game that I didn't know was coming. Like, what?
Exactly.
And I don't know at what point. It seems like this is a trend, particularly in like tech and gaming journalism, that you can't just write a headline. You have to like add something like snarky or something,
Absolutely. Yeah.
like some little bit of cynicism to your headline and your article. And I think it's just like it's that sort of thing is not helping anybody. It's just um, treating people's hard work as sort of like some sort of like joke or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know at what point this became like acceptable to do in journalism, but um, I think it's really poor. And so I give this particular article poor poor journalism poor journalism of the month. Um, and yeah, just kind of another bizarre take from Kotaku. They
Yeah.
had quite a month because they actually had articles that both uh, you know seemed to promote piracy
Yeah. Oh
of
my
games,
gosh.
and then backtracked and like put out an article that went like too far the other way, and it was just kind of like a bizarre month um, for them. But uh, let's go on to the positive news. And I want to
All
highlight
right.
community member of the month now. And I'm gonna give this to Endeavor this month. So he's at
All
Stadia
right.
Hunters on Twitter, and he's the main developer, the main force behind the Stadia Hunters website. And if you've been watching the show from episode 1 through 6, you know that we've used Stadia Hunters data multiple times, and it's really useful data, and it's a really useful community if you're interested in tracking achievements and getting help with achievements and just seeing some of the Stadia growth over time. This is such an awesome website. So really encourage folks to consider joining Stadia Hunters, supporting Endeavor and his work. And this is just such a great example of a community member identifying like a gap in the ecosystem, something that could be made better, a tool that could be provided to the community, and just stepping up and doing it. Um, and yeah, what an awesome guy Endeavor is.
Awesome stuff. I love Stadia Hunters. It's a great site, and it's one of the resources, Jack, that we have in the brand new shameless plug Dosage
Uh,
Community Digest. It's a digest that has a complete list of Stadia content creators, streamers, and podcasters alike, along with sources like this from Stadia Hunters, Stadia Source, and so forth, and Jack himself. You know what I mean? So definitely check it out. We have issues out on Reddit, or you can go to pntsnetwork.com and look for it directly. It's the Dosage Community Digest, but this is definitely one of the great resources out there. And like Jack said, show Endeavor some support because he definitely deserves it.
uh, yeah, and thanks so much, MMTK, for putting together that digest. I think that's another great example of a community member realizing that there's a gap in like getting information out and like putting together these lists of content creators and tool creators, and just filling it. Awesome job with that.
Yeah, hey, the community loved it when we did it way back when, and it's something that I'm pretty sure people would appreciate going forward. So we're gonna do our best to keep it going. But thanks a lot for that, Jack. Definitely.
Okay, so with that, I think we're ready to draw some winners.
All righty, let's do it. Okay, everybody. Again, We'll give you 1 more minute max. If you want to participate in this raffle, if you want to be a winner of one of the four $25 gift cards that are going to be awarded, and thank Jack Deslippe for these. He's the sponsor of this giveaway. You got to hit exclamation point raffle. But guess what? That won't even register if you are not subscribed to this channel. So you have to be subscribed. With all that said, I've babbled long enough. We've had some great statistics. We've pointed out some poor journalism, and we pointed out some great contributors to the community. Now it's time to give back. So with no further ado, I go to pick our four winners. And again, if I pick your name, we're going to give you a short amount of time to prove that you are present and how we can get your code to you. Okay. So with that said, I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Jack?
Yeah, I was just going to say to what we want you to do is, if you're one of the winners, could you please put in like your Twitter username or your Reddit username so that we know how to reach you to get you your prize.
Yep.
So that's
Absolutely.
important. So say a message like, "Hey, this is me. Here's my Twitter handle," or something like that.
So if I call your name, please put the way that we can contact you in the chat as well, to not only confirm that you're viewing, but just to make the process easier for both of us. All right. Now, with all that said, entries are closed. Dun, dun, dun. All right. So now we're going to pick our winners. And the first winner of the $25 gift card giveaway is Lord Vivek. Oh, man. Okay, Lord. Great. I think we got to wait. But if you could, let us know how you would like for us to get a hold of you. All right. So that's winner number one. Winner number two is Geek to Sneak. All right, Geek to Sneak, longtime supporter of the platform. Great stuff, Geek.
Awesome. Congrats.
All right, I know how to get a hold of Geek. So we got two people we already know how to get a hold of, but still, if you put your preference in the chat to let us know that you're present, we would appreciate it. Our third winner, Jack, is Inled. All right, Inled. We know how to contact you, but again, if you can, wow, man. If you can put something in the chat to let us know that you're present and the best way to contact you. And last, go ahead.
He's definitely there because he's congratulating everybody else.
Oh, okay. And last but certainly not least, our final winner is dun, 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 Pippo Pluto. So congratulations to Pippo Pluto. Pippo, can you please in the chat let us know that you're present and which way we could contact you for your prize? All right, let me get back to my other boards just to see who is chatting and who is present before we wrap up. Let's see here. All right, so did anybody see? Okay, Geek to Sneak is in there and Lad is in there. Lord Vivek. Yep, Vivek is in there.
And
I'm sorry, say that again, Jack. Oh, Pippo's right
Pluto
there.
Just chatted. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Stadia Factor. Awesome stuff at Stadia Factor. Okay. So we got everybody. Jack, do you need me to DM you these messages or are you good?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
So expect a message from me sometime in the next 24 hours.
Awesome.
The folks who won.
Awesome stuff. Oh, wow. We got some great general statistics. We got some great information as far as our trivia question for the month. And I think people like that. I don't know if that's something we can continue, but I think people like that poll. And, you know what I mean? That was great stuff. We spotted out some spotty journalism. but we ended it up on a great note with some great contributor efforts, pointing that out, and another great giveaway sponsored by Jack Deslippe himself. Everybody, if you can give Jack a round of applause, thank you very much. Because man under the weather, and he still did the do for the community. So,
and thank you for taking care of the stream and all like the tech side of it. So if anybody watched my stream last night, you realize I accidentally had it like muted for about half the time, and I had all sorts of technical difficulties trying to run the stream by myself. So
we work well together, man. We work well together. It's great stuff. And you're going to be, I mean, just for, just so people are aware, you're doing another stream next week, right? For Caring from the Clouds. Did I see that right, Jack?
Yeah, that's right. I'll be back next Saturday. Me and Arthur will be back.
Awesome.
We got to figure out another game to play, but we had fun with Rock of Ages yesterday. And I know MM2K got one more stream as part of the series too.
Well, you meet us. We're going to be back next week. Me and Project Storm. Shout out to Storm. I know you guys have been missing SML podcast, but we put it on hiatus specifically for this great event. But we're going to be back. We're going to be back next week doing a special SML podcast on this channel. That's going to be 11 a.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. BST, and 8 a.m. Pacific, where we're going to be talking about. We're going to be taking calls all show. People calling in, chatting in, leaving yappas, all right, and winning codes, right? That's what you guys are going to do. And we're going to talk about everybody's Stadia experience and what brought them to the platform and what they love. It's going to be a love fest, the whole show, all right? So you definitely don't want to miss that. Awesome. And the following week, I'm going to be doing a special stream with our clan, our Division 2 clan, the Old Dirty Blasters. We're going to attempt to do a raid within 2 hours. Don't know if we're going to be successful, but you definitely don't want to miss that. So
awesome.
Right. With that said, I think that's it. Thank you all for making this another successful stream. Wow. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you guys for the super chats and all the great stuff. And until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day. Peace.